What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up? It's Rebel Radio. Welcome back. I'm your host, Josh Levine. We're here with part 2 of our ARTWORK REBELS series, hosted in partnership with my man Eddie Donaldson from Guerilla One. Part 1 featured Taz, the talented artist, art director. If you're just hearing us for the first time, go back and listen to the Taz interview from a few weeks back. I think you'll enjoy it. And today's guest is Risk. He's a pioneer of the Los Angeles graffiti scene. He was the founder of Third Rail Clothing and is now the owner of Buckshot Gallery here in Santa Monica. And Risk and Taz actually have a joint show coming up together called Unconventional Forces. That opens May 14th here in Los Angeles, so check that out online. I'm sure you can find it through an easy Google search or shoot us a note on Twitter or Facebook and we'll point you in the right direction, but it's definitely worth checking those guys out. Risk is going to share some great stories with us today on how he's been able to build a career that's lasted decades and really put him at the top of the graffiti game, the streetwear game, all that stuff. This man knew what he wanted from day one, and he's just been working for it relentlessly year after year through all the good and the bad, and he's going to share with us some of his secrets for how he does that, as well as collaboration. That's a big part of what he's all about, and I think some important lessons we can learn from him on that as well. So I hope you enjoy the show coming up. Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you making time for it. I'm excited to talk to you because you're not only a legend in the graffiti world out here, but also, you're one of the early entrepreneurs in streetwear, and I think really one of the first people to bring those two things together and make a business out of it. And so I'm excited to hear, how it all went down and where it's going next.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of funny because, Third Rail was an anti-graffiti line. That's how it started.
Is that right?
Yeah. I hated, Fat Cap and Con Art and all that shit. I hated it. And I was like, no graffiti writer will really wear a marker or a can on their shirt back then.
Yeah.
So we did Third Rail, and it didn't have any graffiti ever. Like, the logo was a tag, but it was, vectorized and stuff like that. So it was an anti-graffiti line, and people knew it as, this graffiti line.
Yeah, sure.
It never was.
That's funny. Well, take us back to the beginning. How'd you first get started in art? Was that always, were you always drawing as a kid?
Yeah, my grandma told me that I used to have, I drew, the word cloud and clouds, bubble and bubbles, fire and fire, stuff like that.
Nice.
So I was like, cool, I was doing graffiti before I knew what it was. But when I was in high school at Uni High, I would draw waves all the time. I was a problem kid, and I went to school. And then this kid from New York came to school, and he was like, what do you write? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Can I curse on there?
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, what do you write? I didn't know what he's saying. I'm like, Merry Christmas, Happy Halloween. He's like, oh, man, what's your tag? I'm like, I don't know what that is. So he showed me photos. And that day, I was like, there were trains. So I was like, that shit's cool.
What year is it?
82.
Okay.
So I was like, that day I went and stole some spray paint, went back to my high school, and I was sitting there waiting for it to get dark. And it was just like dusk out. Jumped the fence, did this piece. It was terrible. I remember I was heartbroken. I was like, damn, that shit's terrible. But the next day, all these kids in school were like, that shit's cool. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
So I kept going.
Where was the piece?
I was on the back of some bungalows at Uni High, and it was just it was white and with a red outline. And it was
at school? At school,
yeah. And it said surf. It was just terrible. And then I went every night, cat and mouse with the security. I had people watching out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I thought I was smart. I broke into the school, and I did this piece that said wipeout. It went all the way down the stairs. And then I called them locker rockers, because you had the lockers, they couldn't buff it.
Right.
Or they'd take a while to buff it. So I just kept hitting the school, and that was it. And then
you didn't get caught?
I got caught a bunch of times, but never really got caught.
Okay.
Because I wrote surf, keg, IROC, Z-Rock, Riz Rock, and then Risk.
Okay.
So every time I kind of got caught, I switched over.
Switched over. Yeah.
And then at Risk, I was just too deep. That's when I was painting the freeways and stuff. I was like, I'm not changing my name.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it.
Yeah. What was the? So I know you said you weren't happy with that first piece, but Must have been still kind of a rush to see it up and see people react to it. And
Well, that's the thing. Like when I did it, I was just totally deflated. I was like, damn. I saw pictures of trains and shit was dope.
Yeah.
And then I saw
Like,
mine.
my shit
I was
doesn't
like,
look like that.
I was like, it doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah.
But then the next day when the kids were like, what is that? Because all we had was gang riding.
Mm-hmm.
Then that was cool. Then I got the rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure.
And I was like, oh, I need colors, more colors,
Right. So were you like hooked pretty much from then?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
but I was hooked on spray paint since I was a kid because I used to steal bikes, BMX bikes,
Okay.
and spray paint them. And I loved the smell of paint,
Yeah.
I was that kid that huffed paint,
Uh-huh.
And then we did these haunted houses and, we'd spray paint all the walls and stuff. I was addicted to spray paint.
Yeah.
It's like Dondi said, it's that smell, all that shit. It's like I was addicted to spray paint from day one.
Uh-huh.
You
So-
still are, though, right?
I still am.
Yeah, I was talking to Taz yesterday, or 2 days ago, and he's like, I was at Kelly's on Saturday. He goes, I had to stand 30 yards away from the studio, man. So much fucking paint. He goes, that guy's going to die from paint inhalation. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's how he does. He goes, he doesn't even wear a fucking mask. He's like, I would have my shirt and I could still smell it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess those fumes are part of the game. Right?
Yeah, it's I definitely have to pay attention to that. Now I have daughters.
Yeah.
Because I want to be around for them, but I can feel it now for the first time ever in like 34 or 5 years, whatever it's been. I can feel it now, so now I gotta wear a mask. But the paint's so much better now than it was when we were younger.
Yeah.
That's why I don't wear a mask. I'm like,
it's
shit. When I painted with it, had lead in it and shit.
Yeah, not anymore. Now these Montanas and these Beltons is like powder and shit. But Gabor, take a note. He needs a mask. All right, we need masks. That's right. Well, that's
So this is obviously way before internet, any of that. So, how aware were you of sort of graffiti as a thing happening around the world? And obviously you saw the New York trains, but like did you understand that this was a kind of a movement that was sprouting up, or were you just doing your own thing?
Nah, I didn't get it at all. I was just doing my own thing, and then I don't really know how it happened. It was weird to me. I would get letters and people that saw my stuff in England and stuff like that, and that blew me away.
Yeah.
And then I had some pen pals, like Bates and these people I met in the world competition in '89, and we used to exchange photos, and it would take like a month or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And like by the time we get the photos, pieces old, but we thought it was brand new.
Right.
It's mind-boggling to me today that kids just like they do something 15 seconds later.
Yeah.
People around the world see
Yeah.
it. But
For sure.
I don't know how that my name caught on because of that. We had no internet. When I tell my daughter stuff like that, they look at me like I'm fucking crazy. They're like, well, what do you mean you had no internet? You didn't own a computer. You had to go rent one. I'm like, no, they didn't have computers.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we started GorillaOne.com, was because when AOL, it was dial-up still,
Yeah.
and the only way we had that we could post photos was scanning them in and then putting them in a message board and then cutting and pasting that code from that message board. And when I seen that, I was like, yo, we got to take advantage of this shit, because there's a deficit in the visibility for these pieces. Like a dude in Australia would do a piece, it'd take him a week to fucking scan it, then he posts it, then it gets around. I'm like, we got to capitalize on this. That was where the whole idea came up from, was trying to create like a world's little posting spot for graffiti. And we wanted to do Saber at Guerilla One, Risk at Guerilla One. Like, it was really super early. Would still dial up though, but now it's amazing that like Sebastian Walker will be in San Diego painting and it's up like as he's doing it or the minute it's done, and like every
While he's
country,
doing it,
and every country in the world can see it. It's amazing. And what I also think's amazing about that too is if you look at some of these kids from Europe, they can fucking burn, like they're burning shit, and you've never even heard of them. It's like they're doing 40 by 20s, and you're like, what? Like, because when I first met this dude and dudes like him, there wasn't anyone else that was doing what they were doing besides like 5 of them. And anyone that said, oh, I'm going to go do that tomorrow, they were bullshitting, because there's a process and you have to learn it, and it takes a long time to get there. Now it's like add water and you're a fucking street artist, and which we talked about last time. You should ask Kelly that question. I don't know if that's a later thing, but you remember the question about
but you tell it.
Well, he asked me a question last week. He said, what would you say to aspiring artists that want to know how to get in the game or become an artist? What advice would you give them?
So the game's changed so much, obviously,
and
it's so much more crowded, right? And like you said, there's this instant piece to it. So what do you tell kids today that are coming up?
First of all, know the history of it. Know where it came from, know who did it. All the early wall writers.
Yeah.
I think you never know where something's at unless you knew like where it came from. So learn the history, and then the second thing is like never let anyone tell you no. Because people told me no my whole life. Graffiti was the worst thing in the world. My dad on his deathbed finally made up with me on his deathbed, but I hated graffiti. I ran away. Anyway, it's without being corny, follow your dreams, and then just never listen to anybody. I think actually do the opposite of what everyone tells you, and you'll probably be all right.
Is that right?
That's definitely not what my response was.
No, that's great. I love it.
Yeah,
and
that's the opposite of what I said. So don't listen to me because I said don't do it.
Well, I think it's
find
different.
another career.
There's different paths, right? And it's not one thing is not going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
I came from that school of Charlie and Dream and all those dudes that were like, that question has been around our whole life.
Yeah.
And then people, they would say, get a new hobby, read a book or something.
That's exactly what I said. Get a new fucking hobby.
But now I have daughters, so
Yeah.
when they look at me, I couldn't imagine someone telling them that. I want to punch them in the face. I'm like, I got to encourage them.
Well, I actually think that's really valuable advice because I feel like in a creative field, and so I was a manager in the 90s, a music manager. And, by the end of my career, I found myself trying to talk people out of it, right? Like these young artists that want to come up. But, but I also realized, like, if I could talk you out of it, then you don't belong in this career.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so you kind of need to hear no
Both sides,
a bunch of times,
Yeah.
right? And you got to say, like, yeah, okay, something's telling me not to mess with it, but something in here is telling me I
It's a
have
bit
no
louder
choice.
voice. Yeah, it's a louder voice.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
for sure.
But also at that time, you were probably dealing with a gang of gangster rap dudes that wanted to get in the game too, right? So you
No,
were like,
they were cool. That wasn't. I mean,
That
that wasn't
wasn't your
the issue.
primary
No, it
focus.
was more like the bands, the dudes coming out of college who are just like, we want to, like, we're gonna sell 1 million records. I'm like, no, you're not. And you're not gonna make any money even if you do. And
No.
so, like,
because the record company is going to keep 90% of it.
dude, I was on the phone with these kids, and I did the math for them over the phone. I'm like, so subtract this, take this out, here's what you're left with after 3 years, right? And they're like, they just couldn't wait to get off the phone with me and like talk to somebody that was more upbeat about it, But I think you got to have that burning inside you. So on that note, though, were you thinking about what were you thinking about as a career? Because
people always say, did you ever think you'd be in a museum or a gallery or something like that? And my answer is always yes. And people are like,
is that right?
What? Because everyone says, I'm not doing this for the fame or whatever. And I just think you're full of shit. Because every graffiti writer has a huge fucking ego, and that's why they write their name 1 million fucking times.
Absolutely.
If you didn't want to be famous, you wouldn't. You would do it in your own house.
Yeah.
In a book, right?
And as far as being in the gallery museums, yeah, I did. I dedicated my life to this, and I wanted to be something. So I aspired to be successful with graffiti. That was my goal,
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be a career. And I was lucky too because I ran a lot of drag when I was younger. About like, I did Michael Jackson and Playboy and Budweiser and everything you could imagine, MTV.
Mm-hmm.
But I always told them, no, you guys want this to be real, because they said we want a real graffiti artist. I'm like, I got to write my name because people will see right through it. I can't write your name because that shit's corny. So I was really lucky in the early stages doing that,
How'd the paid gigs start happening? Do
Um,
you remember the first one?
no, I don't remember the first one, but I don't even know how to work this thing.
Gerlach. I can tell you this, when I first got into graffiti and I met the dudes from TCF in the Valley and I saw these guys starving for wall space, right? I got a lot of dudes their first paid jobs because a lot of dudes didn't even realize it would be a paid job. Like, for instance, Topher Chin, like, he was an artist and I got him a magazine illustration. But what I did with the dudes in TCF is I was like, look, dude, let me go to these liquor stores and tell them to give us $40 and some beer, and we'll paint their name and we'll do a roll call and we'll be happy, because that was like the best we could do. Like, it would say Spotlight Liquors.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I
it would be a
remember
roll
I
call
put up
of
my
us.
pager number on walls. On illegal walls, I put my pager number on it.
So we did the exact same thing. And what's funny
That's
is
great.
then it went to airbrushing because Belle Biv DeVoe was doing their thing and there's all this shit. So Fever did this character. I did them on colored cardboard construction paper, and I put my beeper number at the bottom. And guess who hits me on the phone? Baba, because I hit Melrose and I hit because the hip hop shop was around back then, so I'm stapling these things. I'm going door to door, and I get a call. It's like, yo, I want to get my overalls done. He like ran me through the whole thing. He's like, how much is it? And then he's like, yo, you guys aren't real artists. You need to find a new job or something like that. And it was Baba. Sweated me. That's the first time I ever encountered Baba. So I also knew, that there was going to be a future to this thing, and I don't think it took a genius to figure it out.
Right.
But I just think that when you're in it, sometimes you're blocked by what the future looks like for you sometimes. But it was like Wise, for instance, when Wise was my college roommate in San Diego, and he went to Art Center, and when he graduated, he's like trying to put his resume together for agencies. First job was White and Kennedy, and he's like, I'm like, you got to put graffiti on there. He's like, nah, man, they're not even gonna accept me. I'm like, dude, you gotta do it. He goes, no, and I go, who else knows better what we're going through than an agency that seeks fame for their client? Because that's what we're doing. We're out here, like you said, egotistically putting our names in the best places where it'll stay the longest with the funkiest style, so that people will take note. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, like that's what they do. He's like, nah, it'll never work. So he ended up getting a job at White and Kennedy. Guess what his first task was? A graffiti-related job.
Sure.
And he probably spent the first couple years of his whole career at White and Kennedy figuring out ways to pull in the Expos and the Reese's and shit like that. So, that was kind of my first job thing, was like, let's make some money at this, and let's like take it to the next level.
I think a lot of kids in art school get sidetracked because, art school, there was a time when you couldn't say graffiti. They're like, I don't want to see that shit. I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
I never experienced that because I went to USC and I graduated fine arts USC, and my teachers were cool because they never saw graffiti. It was so early.
Is that right?
That it was new.
Yeah, they were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I had recognition because I had won the world championship thing. So my teachers changed the curriculum for me. Like they were like, everyone had to like do a fruit bowl, oil painting and fruit bowl. They let me do a spray can or a noose or something.
Nice.
But they just changed all the assignments for me because they knew that I was already had my medium and genre. So I had a very pleasant, positive art school situation. But people that came after me had it really rough because there were so many graffiti artists, and they weren't not a lot of them weren't any good.
Sure.
The teachers were like, I don't want to see that crap.
Yeah.
So
of course.
I had a different experience with art school. Nathan Oda, a good friend of mine, Kuz, he's a professor, and he was kind of shy about his graffiti, never talked about it. And then some of the kids in his class were talking about it, and now it's in the curriculum. And they study graffiti and stuff like this. And he's like, "Yeah, I know Risk," and now you don't know Risk. And he brought him down to the wall. And
where you guys did a collab?
No, he didn't want to touch a can. And I'm like, bro, you got to come into the studio. So he came in the studio and he touched the can. That was it.
Is that right?
Stuck.
Yeah. And now he's embraces it.
Yeah. So you kind of had this, this belief that it was going to happen, right? That you'd be a gallery artist, and that would be your career.
Definitely.
When did you feel like you like that was happening? Like when does it go from kind of being a dream to reality?
You know what? Like, I think that, I saw the Tamara Bain gallery, and they had, I think it was Futura, Lee, I forget who else, Eero or A1 or something. And it was a gallery show, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
And I used to focus on things and obsess on things. And then I was eventually like having lunch with Tamara Bain, talking about having a show, and I went to a different direction. But yeah, I just used to focus on things, and then once I saw it, I knew I could get it. I knew I would have it eventually, So I think when I saw that show, that was it. Like, I was like, I want that. Like it went from all the commercial shit I didn't care about anymore. I just wanted to do art, like my art.
Did you say you used to obsess on things?
That's behind you now.
No, but if you saw this dude, like that's one thing I will say about Kelly is like he gets set on something, it's happening.
Yeah.
It might not be the best outcome, like it might not work, but he's gonna figure out how to make it happen. And once he'll get there, it'll happen. He'll be like, it wasn't what we thought, but we did that shit. And all the time when I work for him, I'm like, dude, are you crazy? He's like, go get it done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, man, So yeah, he's definitely taught me over the years that, like, kind of zeroing in and focusing.
Perseverance. I think that's with anything.
You will definitely get what it is that you're trying to do if you just fucking, stick your head down and get it done.
So where'd that come from? Did you learn that along the way? Was there like a mentor that taught you that, or was it?
Probably my grandfather. My grandparents raised me when I was really young. They were just, he's from New Orleans. He was a country boy, and he was just kind of like get shit done kind of guy, like just make it happen. And, I don't really remember, the lessons I remember were like criminal lessons, but I don't really remember like anything specific. He was just like a good role model,
Yeah.
He taught me like, as far as the criminal stuff is like, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Like just like the, the moral things and
sure.
Don't steal and just stuff.
I think I got that one from Dave Chappelle. Like people do the crime they can afford. He's the one that did that, right?
So I think so, yeah.
So now when I run a red light, I'm like, do I have enough money to cover this ticket? Sure,
nice. I do. Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. And so, when did you start getting known outside of LA?
Well, that's like I said, that was really early because I don't know how that happened, man. I don't know how people in other countries. Oh, you know what? IGT Times, International Graffiti Times. It was like a little zine from New York, and it was not even in color. It was just black and white. And I think someone submitted a piece that Slick and I did on Crenshaw to them, and they were picking the U.S. team to represent the U.S. in the World Championship Graffiti Battle. So Slick and I got picked, went out and won the battle, and then I think from that point I met like people from Paris and England, everywhere, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. So graffiti is interesting in the art world because it's the only medium I can think of where collaboration is so important.
Yeah.
You're right. For the most part, artists work alone.
For me, it's all about collaboration. People always ask me why. Like a lot of my friends that are artists are like, why do you use so much collaborations? I'm like, graffiti to me is like a social. That's how we talk. That's how we communicate. Like I don't know dates, but graffiti is like a chronological calendar to me. Like I could look at that piece and say when it was, where it was, who I was with, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you like what's today's date or anything like that.
Yeah.
So to me, just to know that I'm alive and where I'm at, I have to be interacting with people, and the way I interact is through art. So collaborations are just like, I don't know.
It's key.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's key. It's kind of like writing on the wall for Cavemen for Kelly, right? Like you look and go, okay, that's when I had this girl. I was doing this, right? Like you just look through time.
Yeah.
So how do you know who you want to collaborate with, and like what makes a good collaborator for you?
Well, to me, it's not. Well, yeah, obviously, you like their art, that's cool. But to me, it's a person that you can vibe with, and you want to spend time with and hang out and talk to. Because, like I said, collaborations to me are just communication.
Right.
So it's who do you want to like really sit in the studio with for the next couple months and bullshit with, Because there's a lot of people that are great, and I just can't stand them, so I won't like work with them, But then there's a lot of people that aren't so hot, but they're the best people in the world to work with, and I'd love to paint with them. And then there's a lot of people that are just like incredible and that can teach me shit, and it's everything works out all the way around. So
yeah, who would have been the most successful or most kind of important for you collaborations?
I think working with Nathan Oda, because we started doing graffiti together in the beginning, and at that time we're ending up with shows at the end, so it was a full circle thing. And people that I've grown up with and done a lot of time with, like Slick. We haven't done anything recently yet, but like that's gonna be a good one because we have so much time. I think people that you've known for a long time are the best collaborations, especially when you can see where you came from and where they are now and how you could kind of meet up now as opposed to then.
Right. And so when you do that, is it like you bring your style, they bring theirs, or are you adapting your style to meet them?
The way I usually do it is we just kind of work over each other. Like I'll do the first layer, and then they'll do a layer, and then I'll do a layer, and they'll do a layer, and just whatever happens, it's always different, Yeah, it's just I think it's just like the stuff I'm doing with Taz right now is going to be interesting because we're both working on separate bodies of work and we haven't merged them yet, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so you don't know.
We see each other's stuff, but we haven't gotten the studio together yet and merged them. So
I think you guys should do a mural. Somehow figure out a way to bring him to the wall because I don't think he's ever really done that. I think that would be like for him, if you asked him that question in 8 years, that would probably be the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
sure.
Is like, what was one of the best things you've ever done besides like working with all the different people that we discovered in our last sit down? But I'd like to see him do an oversized stencil of some of his shit and kill a mural. I think that would be,
We could do that. We could do that the outside of the gallery in the back.
Well, what I also thought about was doing something in the studio and video in the process. But whatever, I think he would really like that. And what's interesting about these two is like I've known both of them for 20 years plus and done a lot of different things with each of them. And it's like to see them get together, it's like two kids in a fucking sandbox that just get it. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're not taking each other's toys away from each other. They're like sharing, and like it's like you have to almost pry them apart at the end of the day. Like his wife's like, "Come on, Kelly, it's time to come inside." And Jim's wife's calling, going, "Are you coming home?" It's like, you know, I'm scared to leave him alone because I'm like, am I going to come back in 2 days and you guys are still going to be sitting here? Like, because they're both just kind of creative geniuses. Like I am hashtagging my stuff Clash of the Titans because to me, and I think I have a good perspective being involved so long, it's like this dude's body of work is so, it's like, I don't know too many people who have created as much as he has, just period, as far as art, but not to mention styles and different areas of it. And then you look at Jim from Chicago to Pearl Jam and, you know, Lollapalooza. It's like, putting these two together in a room, I think is it's going to be a really great show. Yeah. And I think, you know, the collaboration will probably continue onward after that.
Yeah, for sure.
What are the toughest collaborations? I mean, you don't have to put people's names out. I shouldn't say that. Go ahead. No, but like what, you know, when it doesn't work, like what?
You know, the collaborations that don't work are when people just think that, oh, he's a graffiti artist and he's a graffiti artist. I have a wall for you guys, but you guys have to collaborate. Like, I was never down with that shit, and I hated it. Like, when the city was like, you know, in the '84 Olympics or whatever, and they're like, all right, every artist is getting a mural, and we're going to take all the graffiti artists and let them work on one wall together. I was like, well, would you put Picasso and such together? Why the fuck are you doing that? Yeah. And then, you know, it kind of really pissed me off. And that doesn't work. You know, when you just take two guys and say, oh, they're graffiti artists, put them together, you know, you have to have a synergy, you know? So I think, to answer your question, what doesn't work is when you just take two strangers and put them together. Right. You know?
Yeah. What would you say was like the height of your street fame? Was there a certain piece or time when like that was kind of its biggest?
I don't know, man. I mean, the 101 freeways were great. You know, like I killed those things, and like I had like, I was looking at photos the other day. I had like, you know, up to 20, 30, 40 pieces running at one time. So that was a lot. Yeah. And then, you know, there's always stuff that comes along. The Michael Jackson video was huge.
Which one?
Michael Jackson, The Way You Make Me Feel. Those, man, I think it's like as time goes on, you just try to outdo yourself. You know, like the Mocha show was great. The book was great. I mean, I'm working on a movie now. I mean, there's always stuff, I think, you know. Yeah. I don't really know where it's gonna go. I want to be an artist that never knows completion. You know, like never knows the end. You know, because if you know the end, the ride's over and life's it's a hell of a ride. And I think it was Goodyear or one of those tire stores. The slogan said, "A company that'll never know completion." And I thought that was the dopest shit ever. I was like, that's me. That's cool. You know.
Yeah. What so obviously you've done a lot of music stuff, and you know, music and art seem to be, you know, linked. Yeah. Is music like a big influence for you?
Definitely. It's huge for me. I mean, you know, I'm like, somehow I'm getting known as like the rock graffiti guy, you know.
Is that right?
And I'm cool with that, you know, that's totally cool. But it's, you know, Led Zeppelin is my all-time go-to inspirational for everything.
What's the record?
All of them. Led Zeppelin 2, probably the most. But I don't know, like, you know, working with people like Aerosmith and going to paint with Joe Perry and stuff, that shit's just such a high, you know? And especially because those dudes are like, it seems like those dudes are so Slash. I mean, all the kind of rocker dudes are just kind of like go for it kind of guys. Like when Joe was painting, he was like, all right, we're going to go bombing. And I was like, or we're going to go painting. I'm like, cool, let's do this. And so we're in the limo, we're cruising around. I'm jumping out, I'm doing these pieces. And he's standing there, and I'm like, wow, this dude's like really into it. He's watching. And then finally at the third piece, he goes, so when do I get the can? And I was like, oh, shit, you really want to paint. Yeah. You know, and he started painting, you know. So
Did he paint?
Really cool. Yeah, he painted. He actually created the Aerosmith logo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, he has a hard time with the can, but he has that drive, and he wants to get used to the can. You know, he's been on tour forever, but I don't know if I can say this, but he wants to go paint. I can't say we're going to go paint, but yeah, he's going to come go paint.
Nice. That's amazing. So hip hop and graffiti are sort of like seen as synonymous, and then you're talking about the rock influence. I had a long talk with Roger Gassman on this topic, and he was kind of critical of the way that he felt like graffiti had been co-opted by hip hop.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I mean, I was very into hip hop when I was younger, so it was cool, but I was also very into punk rock, more so into punk rock and more so into rock. So, the West Coast, all the dudes that were dope were all punk rockers. They weren't into hip hop. They got into hip hop, but it was all punk rock first. The hip hop thing comes from New York, and graffiti was originated there, and that was the music there, and that's why.
Right.
But nowadays it's like it's not such an issue now. But 10, 15 years ago, you had to be into hip hop if you did graffiti. That was just the stereotype,
Right.
And that's why I think people like myself and Scene kind of stood out, because we were like long hair biker kind of dudes. So people were like, they do graffiti, they didn't get it.
My first encounter with it was with TCF, right? So I'm hanging out. It's like surfer dudes, like Scar.
Yeah.
And like my observation had been like Beach Street and like brothers in tracksuits and shit.
Of course.
Right? And then all of a sudden I'm in the valley at this party, and these two dudes start scrapping and they're arguing, and it's like Scar and some other dude, and they're like Infectious Grooves days. I'm like, so to me, I was like, I'm from Kentucky. I ride the line, black, white, both. Hip hop, I'm punk rock. I was so down with the fact that there was like white boys with long hair listening to fucking punk rock that were painting graffiti, stealing shit from 7-Eleven, racking paint. I was like, wait a minute, this is not, because the Beach Street dudes, I'm pretty sure the lifestyle was different than what we were doing here. We were going in 7-Eleven 8 deep, and everybody's coming out with 40s and food. I don't think that I don't think that was the culture. I'm not saying they didn't steal and that wasn't part of it, but it was just different.
Yeah.
It was bred because it wasn't that hip-hop related, break dance and then catch a tag kind of thing, and that's what brought me into it.
Because like Radiotron, back in the Radiotron days, that was very hip-hop. We'd go there and we were like, fish out of water. We didn't fit in. It was just something we'd like, let's go to Radiotron this weekend. But our life was surfing every day,
Yeah.
So it was just different,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like Water the Bush was dope because it was like that hip-hop New York experience, but 90% of what was going on out there with KSN and TCF and all these other crews was like white boys drinking beer, listening to rock and roll or punk. And it's like when you go to Kelly's, Kelly's probably got the sickest classic rock playlist than out of anyone I know. So when Barbecue It Is Pad, every song you're like remembering when you were 12, like, a great movie scene, because it's definitely not what you would expect if it was a stereotypical hip hop co-part.
Yeah.
Mixed in with a couple of classics. I got LL Cool J Radio, stuff like that.
I mean,
that just
it's not all old school white boy music, but
Sure. It's funny though. I mean, I remember talking to Mr. Cartoon 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he kind of reminded me, like we were talking about low riding, and he kind of reminded me that, like, I think the way he said, like, the real low riders, like, they don't listen to hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, right, because they predate hip hop.
Oldies,
right?
We were roommates for years, and he got me into the oldies. He was like, listen to this.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And and I think that's like you would also, we would also just sort of generically associate low riding with hip hop culture today, right? Or in the 90s, whatever. And I think, it's interesting how all of these different elements, kind of got, I don't know if it's a bad thing, right? But they kind of got popularized in the mainstream through hip hop.
Yeah.
That could be a time thing too, though. It's like hip hop was such a prolific movement that anything that was happening that could jump on did. You know what I'm saying? Like even if you look at culturally, like the Irish rap group, the Jewish rap group, the Bronx or the Brooklyn rap group.
Yeah.
It's like, so I think, at that time it was, if you look at punk rock, or you look at, and this is just my opinion, if you look at some of these other music forms, they just kind of came out and they were like their own little thing. But hip hop turned from Baker Boys having one night on Friday to regular formatted radio stations fighting each other for listeners in major markets. So it's like everything just kind of rode that. You know what I mean? So like punk rock will never see that type of explosion because now punk rock is mainstream and it just kind of happened to have mainstreamed, right? Like with Blink-182 or these other bands, right? I think hip hop just made it was like, we're here, we're doing this, and you're going to take notes. And so people were like, yo, I'm with them. You know, how can I get down with that? You know, whether it was dudes who lowrided, or whether it was dudes that did graffiti, or whether it was dudes that gangbanged. You know what I mean? It was like, we're going to get in this voice because that is the most prolific voice of our time right now.
Sure. Yeah, and then the way, you know, Roger just sort of describes it is like, you know, you have the rise of videos through MTV and BT and whatever, and you have the need for album art, and like the artists, the hip hop artists and labels just started grabbing graffiti as the visual backdrop for it. But like he says, it's almost like it just sort of happened. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It's not like that's necessarily the natural fit. It just kind of happened.
Well, what's funny is we did, you know, obviously me getting into the business of the art and trying to figure out how to get people paid. I used to do album covers, and we did the Nappy Roots first album cover for Mike Kieran. And it was Mike Maxwell, who wasn't a graffiti artist, but he was a street artist. He's actually the one that illustrated it. And I'm sure Kelly can say, how many albums covers you done?
I don't even know.
Yeah, and then you got Mir doing Limp Bizkit. So you're right. It was kind of like graffiti got visualized by mainstream through bands that were like putting their homies on to do the covers or the backdrops on the videos.
Sure.
Because probably, one, they were homies and they wanted to use the format, and then two, they were cheaper than the other dude that was charging $30,000 for some album art. Like Jim, for instance. I don't know what he was charging back then, but
I hope it was good.
Yeah, man. It's
so
like,
so talk about some album covers. Well,
I couldn't even tell you, man. Like people use my stuff and they're like, can I use this? I'm like, cool. That's the majority of my stuff. Like I don't really do like their logo and stuff like that anymore. I just like, you could use that painting, whatever. So, you know, the last one I did was Mad Child. I guess we did the I think I did like 3 or 4 of them just recently.
Oh shit.
And he made some prints on them and stuff. So, but he's a friend and he liked some stuff I did, and I let him use it. And then we adapted some stuff and made some prints. But I like that better, you know, because if they could see a painting and get the feel for it, then it's real. It's organic, you know, rather than trying to create something to portray a feel.
Yeah. And is that in general the way you approach corporate stuff, is more selling art as opposed to creating
100%
unique for them?
100%. Like I'm not an illustrator, you know. It's like I gave that up a long time ago. I wasn't that good at it, so I was like, let those guys do that. You know. I don't have the patience for that, you know. Like I'm very spontaneous and immediate gratification and sloppy. Like, you know, Dennis Hopper said, when are you gonna get tight? When are you gonna get loose and paint tight? And I was like, no. He said, when are you gonna get tight and paint loose? And I was like, whoa, what did he just say? And I started thinking about it. All my stuff looked like a sticker or a sign at that time, perfectly crisp. I could make the can look like, you know, whatever. And I'm like, shit, it needs a couple drips. And then I just started going like, oh, it needs to get real messy. It needs no outline, or it needs only an outline, or whatever. So I just thought that was really cool, and that just became like me and my art. And that doesn't really lend itself to illustration.
Yeah, but let's also speak on the fact that Kelly, you know, back in the day, would come and paint in an hour and a half and burn the wall, and there'd be dudes there for 2 days still trying to figure out how to get the 3D with the fill. And like, I mean, he's notoriously known as like one of the fastest burners out there. Like, he'd be like, it'd be a paint day, it'd be like, all right, be here at 10 a.m. and we're closing at 6, and Kelly show up at 3:30 and burn everybody there. You know what I mean? And like, and I don't mean that because he's sitting there. I mean, like, I mean that, like, literally. And I don't just mean aesthetically how it looked to you, but I mean skill wise and all the different factors that you put into a piece, whether it be 3D or fills or arrows or cuts.
Well, I had to learn to paint quick because all my shit was illegal. So I did the opposite, and I'd put up my outline and get it right first, and then go back and fill it and clean it up. You know, people are like doing the traditional, like, oh, I put a light color outline, let me fill this and let me do this. I'm like, I don't have time for that shit.
Just crush it,
get it up, and then come back.
So talk about for a minute the unique challenges of building kind of a legitimate career off an illegal medium, right? And I know, you know, we see Shepard in the news every once in a while with his legal challenges. What's that been like for you?
You know, it was crazy. When I sold Third Rail, I don't know how many years, I don't know time, so it could have been 2 years, could have been 20 years ago. When I sold it, I think it was like 8 years ago, maybe now.
It's more than that.
See, I don't know. But I thought I had a lot of money, and I had a decent amount of money. I'm like, I can retire.
Yeah.
And I had some businesses. I bought a construction company, and I had some properties and whatnot.
Nice.
And the economy crashed, and I lost everything. Like, I lost the properties, I lost the business, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now I have to paint and support myself with my paintings, and I never wanted to do that. I always wanted my paintings just to be for me.
Right.
Sell a couple, cool, whatever. So I kind of got just swept up in that whole, like, now this really matters. And that's what really was, everything, I think everything happens for a reason. It was a blessing in disguise, because I had to really get serious about my work and see what made me take what I liked and deconstruct my whole aesthetic. So it got a lot of pressure, I guess. So it was really scary. So now I have 4 daughters, and I have to depend on a check. And what do I do, and how do I do that without, just doing corny corporate stuff? So I guess I was really lucky. I started doing paintings in galleries and selling, and I don't know. But yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, let's talk about Third Rail. How'd you know you could start a clothing company?
Well, that's funny, because when I started Third Rail, I ran away from home over graffiti, and I had this little loft and right down the alley right here on Vignes.
Uh-huh.
And I'd have to make money. So I'd go to Melrose, and I had a pinball machine in my loft, and I'd print some bullshit little shirt and take a backpack to Melrose and sell some T-shirts.
Yeah.
And then this Japanese guy comes up and he goes, "Oh, that's really cool. I want to buy, like, some shirts." I'm like, "Yeah, I got whatever you need." He's like, "You got like 30?" I'm like, "Yeah." Went home, made 30. He's like, "You got 100?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He's like, "All right." So then he gave me an order, and it was $33,000. And that was like $1 million back then.
Yeah.
So long story short, it took me a year to make this order. I had no idea about seasons or any of that shit.
Right.
He kept coming to town. He's like, "How's
But
the
he
order?"
prepaid.
No. He'd give me a little
Oh,
money.
he gave you. Okay.
He kept coming to town and go, "How's the order coming?" "Oh, it's coming." And he'd just laugh, whatever. And then finally I learned about clothing, and his name was Hiroshi. I said, "Hiroshi, man, why didn't you fucking tell me I was a clown?" And he goes, "No, you learn.
Yeah.
But he became my distributor. So actually, I outgrew him, and we were doing, a couple $1 million, whatever. And he goes, "I have to let you go." And I'm like, "No, I'll always stick with you, Hiroshi." And he just didn't take my calls one day, just so I would go find another distributor and keep going. He's a cool dude.
Wow, what a great.
Yeah, and then after I got a new distributor, he came back around and was my friend again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I stumbled into it. That's how it happened. I had to go work. I was designing Guess jackets and Warner Brothers jackets for free, so they would make my samples. So, and then I learned the business.
Yeah.
And
so, that's such a different role, right? From being the creative to now running the business. Was there was there a moment when you realized, like, okay, now I'm in a different place?
Yeah, 100%. Like, the whole reason I got rid of Third Rail was because I was running the business, and I wasn't doing any art.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not making me happy.
So wait, how big did it get?
We were about 15 million, and that was like small for a clothing line.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so fascinated with that, and we see that in music. We see that in all the creative fields where, you're really good at your art, and therefore you have to become a business person, right? Because no one, which is way different than the sort of straight world where it's like you learn business and then you go, you go
apply that to someone else's art.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
I took business classes at SC too, so I was like, my dad was hardcore on that. Like, he hated graffiti because he really wanted me to be a businessman. My dad was I don't know how to say, he was a very smart guy, very successful up and down. He was a criminal, He started out like laundering money and did all this stuff, and took that money and invested, and he was very successful. But the thing with me, he was, I got to rewind, I guess, to tell the whole story. But in 7th grade, I lived in New Orleans. I quit school because I was stealing bikes and stuff like that. My mom was a teacher, and it looked really bad that she couldn't get me to go to school. We had truant officers that'd come and chase me around, and I'd get away. So she's like, "We're going to go visit your dad." I'm like, "Cool." He lived in Lake Tahoe at the time. We landed. I remember seeing snow, and she's like, "Do you like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's fucking cool, snow." She goes, "Good, because you're staying here." I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
And then my dad's a big dude, and so I got off the plane. He's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "Oh, you think you're a badass?" I'm like, "What? No." He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to straighten you out." I'm like, "Yeah, right." So
Wow.
he did. So he he hired a teacher to live with us, and she went from class to class with me to make sure I wouldn't ditch and stuff like that.
Wow.
And he was just like, he was out of his fucking mind, right? He was running around doing God knows what, but he made sure education was important to me, and I had stuff like that. So later on, when I got in USC and I switched my major from business to fine art, he flipped out. He just lost his fucking mind, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, we fought about that till the day he died. So, yeah, I always had a good business sense, I guess, you know?
Yeah. So this is a little offbeat question, but now that you're a father, your own, like, what did you take from him and from your experience with your own father into your parenting?
This is going to sound terrible, Dad, I love you, but I do everything the opposite that he did, like complete opposite. Like, you know, he never, I could count on my hands how many times he said I love you, or, you know, showed any, like, gratification. He probably loved Eddie more than he loved me, you know, like.
It's just easier to show people you're not that close to. That's
Sure.
all.
Yeah.
But we did have a good
Yeah, I get it.
relationship, me and Binks.
So, you know, it's you know, and you know, he did a lot of good for me and everything, and I'm sure he wanted the best, but like I tell my daughters daily how much I love them and hold them and hug them, and you know, he's visited me at school maybe once or twice in my life. You know, I just did the daddy dance the other night, and I go to their school every week, a couple times. Like, I'm
That
just
was
very
fun,
involved.
right? The daddy dance.
Oh, it was great.
I love that.
I'm just very involved with my kids, you know.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do kind of like him, I guess, probably is I don't hide stuff from them. Like, they're around anybody, bikers and bike gangs, and they're around. They see shit all day long, and nothing's hidden from them. It's just, you know, just a lot of communication and positive encouragement.
I mean, to speak on that, like, Binks was very serious, you know, but he came up in that world where, in order to be respected and do the things that you need to do, you have to be serious. Like, you know, he had those kind of meetings where people came to him and looked to him for that guidance and that leadership in that way. So to be relaxed or let your guard down was just not cool for a dude from that era. You know, like, he's the nostalgic scotch at the end of the day, you know, 6 in the morning until 6 in the morning until 7 at night type of dude.
Yeah.
And Kelly's definitely, you know, a little, like he says, a little bit different than that, more of a renegade and kind of following his dreams, which definitely puts those two types of people at odds. But they had a really interesting relationship. But to talk about Kelly with being a dad, like, he's a great dad, a better dad than I am, because he's there, he's present, and his relationship with his kids is pretty open. And that's one thing that I do as well. Like, my kids, when they're around me, I take them anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I've done things with my daughters I don't even want to speak about, because normal people would be like, I can't even believe you said that. Right. And Kelly's the same way. It's like, some of our friends are surly dudes that are just not the most welcome kind of person in a family setting. Like, you know, your daughter's fourth birthday. But, you know, I think, to speak on that, I think that's really important for our era and the era to come, because now everything is mixed together. It's not like it used to be, where dad's got to go earn the money and wear a suit, and mom's got to be the nice person making dinner at home. Like, everything's so different. So I think giving these kids that insight early on is probably going to give them a step up or an edge on some of the other kids
for sure,
that they're competing with, whether it's for a spot on the team or a spot in college or a job, for that matter.
Sign of the times too. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like, spray paint, for example. Like, kids love spray paint. They always want spray paint. My kids have so much spray paint that they don't like it. They're like, Dad, can I have the brush? Like, what do you mean? I got a can right here. And they're like, yeah, I like the brush. You get better colors. I'm like, all right, cool. But it's like, you know, you give them experience and they could, you know, develop their
take
own,
it or leave it.
You know.
Yeah. And what's funny too is Kelly's kids go to private school. I don't put them on blast, but they go to private school. And there's a certain girl I know that lives out in the neighborhood, you know, well-to-do, and she's been to the house with me before at Kelly's for you know, a holiday dinner. And one day, I guess, his daughter's performing at school, and the girl that I know's kid saw that his daughter goes to school with his daughter, and she called me. She's like, "Oh my God, we were at school today and we saw Kelly at school," and he had donated some art. And it's like, it for me, that's kind of those weird stories where it's like, the kid's younger. He's like 9. He wears a little jacket to school, and then Kelly's at school with his kid. Like that doesn't, when you visualize what a television show or a movie looks like, and they're describing a certain activity, going to private school with your dad, they're not casting Kelly.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's crazy. 'Cause
Unless that's the whole story.
Well, unless
like,
there's some kind of hook there, right? But
My
that's
daughters-
reality now.
Yeah.
They went through stages. Like my oldest is 17, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna tell my friends you do graffiti. That's so embarrassing." I'm like, "What are you talking about, man?" And now
Now you're like
long
the
story
coolest dad.
short,
Yeah.
So I go to school and they're like, "What's up, Mr. Risk?" I'm like, "What's up?" Like
That's funny.
but they're cool, and
Yeah.
she, I don't know, it's just different, But
Yeah.
and the teachers and the other parents are like, think it's really cool,
Of course they do, because
Yeah.
it's amazing that someone can have such a solid and secure life off of something that used to be of a teenage fantasy or whatever, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't always like that, because Bailey's 17, so she was a baby, and people met me and like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Artist." "Oh, that's cool. What kind of art?" "Graffiti." "Oh."
Right.
Yeah, they're showing
Yeah.
it, but now
Yeah.
they're like trying to figure out how they can buy a piece so
Yeah.
they can maybe put their kid through college that's 10.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting aspect to the business.
Did you ever think, I mean, I know you had this, vision for yourself, right? But just in terms of graffiti in general, like, did you ever think that it would be, in galleries and museums and like so?
Yeah, man, I did, because I my whole mission was to make, graffiti not a household name, but like an art form, like a legitimate art form.
Yeah.
And I went through a period of time where I didn't say the word graffiti. I called it aerosol art. Graffiti had a negative connotation.
Right.
All these things. And now I'm just like, take or leave it. It's good graffiti, bad graffiti. You can make up your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like wanted it to be a genre, like just like any other medium of art, So yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah.
I got a tough question, right? Like with I don't know if it's a tough question, but with street art and graffiti, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between street art and graffiti?
Graffiti takes a lot more talent. No. Graffiti is like, I think, the old craftsman, like it's old, right? So it's like the craftsman kind of guy that used to carve the fucking wood himself, and street art, now they use a computer or whatever. But it's like, and I don't have anything against street art. I like street art, but I'm saying they've learned to work smarter, not harder. So now they can sit in the studio and make something, go paste it up, and they can get up twice as much. So it's just elevation. It's just like where it's gone. It's just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just sign of the times. People got smarter, and people got a way to get up quicker and easier.
Yeah. So if someone called you a street artist, you'd be cool with that, right?
I don't care. I just call myself an artist. I don't use graffiti or street.
I get it.
Right.
I had a hard time adjusting. I'm not going to lie to you. When the street art thing started happening and all the popularity came, I wasn't the dude with my socks pulled up at the barbecue growling so much, but I kind of was, because it's like I saw, for me personally, just to get in the crew, I had to go write 1,000 times, and then when I was done, it's like, okay, now I had another step to go through.
Yeah.
Now it's like you meet a dude at a barbecue, you have a beer, it's like you're in the crew. I'm kind of like, wait a minute, how the hell did that happen? And then the guy that just got in the crew is talking shit about the dude that started the crew. I'm just like, well, I'm getting dizzy, so let me just take a step back and kind of like figure out what that means, because there definitely was a certain process you had to go through in order to be acknowledged and respected, that I think the art form is kind of lost, and I get it, but it just took me a minute to get to a place where I was comfortable.
Well, and I think some of that too was the corporate thing, right? So my company, we did all the street art for Scion, right? So we hired all the artists and put the shows together and all that stuff. And I remember with them at the very beginning, we're like, okay, we're gonna do a graffiti thing, and then as soon as that got written down on a piece of paper, they're like, oh, let's call it street art, because,
Graffiti's a bad word.
Graffiti's illegal.
Right.
Right. Now, street art could be illegal too, but it's a more of a vague connotation, like, and graffiti had this very distinct meaning to it within, the corporate, what the lawyers were going to see and all that. And so,
well, yeah, I mean, that translated all the way down. Like when I started, it was like we would literally go get 8 cans of paint and go all night until they were out, and we were going to write on as much shit as we could. I was never a painter. I was a tagger. First piece I did was the last piece I did.
What did you tag?
I wrote Sync, S-Y-N-C, and I did one train, and I fucking saw the photo, and I was mortified. I was like, I'm never doing that again. They're like, you have to. I'm like, no, I don't. I'll fight everybody you want me to, but I'm never doing that again, because that's bad for everybody. That's bad for business. But I mean, it was vandalism. Like
Yeah.
graffiti
Yeah,
started
exactly.
as vandalism.
Yeah.
And then dudes that like Kelly scared all the normal dudes out of the game because they started doing arrows and cuts and blends and
Right.
getting funky with it. And then it kind of trimmed down the runnings.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely wasn't just the lawyers taking precaution. It's like
No, of course.
you look at GK, one of the most notorious graffiti cases that I'm aware of in New York. It's like when he got arrested, they had millions of dollars worth of vandalism on record.
For sure.
him.
Yeah.
We tried to raise money and fight his case, and that was like that time where it was like graffiti's bad, don't do it.
Yeah.
Schools are launching campaigns where if you have graffiti on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
clothes,
of course.
so
Who was
it's
what was the kid here in the
Chaka?
80s? Yeah, Chaka.
Chaka,
That
yeah.
was just like astronomical.
Dude,
You know, it was cool. Chaka. I remember watching. Not Letterman, what's the other guy? Jay Leno. And he said, so the space shuttle took off today and it had a Chaka tag on it. I was like, he's made it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
dude, look, when I had Oddspot, Chaka walked into the store and like no one
Yeah.
had seen him. It was like this mystical character. And he walked in, he bought some shit. I'm like, yo, what you write? He's like, Chaka. And I'm like, come on. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, show me. He's like, I'm like, oh shit, what's up?
Yeah.
Because like everyone
Yeah,
was
yeah, of
like,
course.
have you ever seen him?
'Cause
Because
you
he's
don't
from
know
the
who he is, of
valley.
course.
Do you know him? I'm like, no, I don't know him. It was like the mysterious dude. And then he was cool as fuck. He started coming to the store a lot. And then
I still talk to Chaka.
I haven't seen him since those days.
He just came to the show last week.
I would love to see him again. I actually reached out to him on Instagram. I didn't think he hit me back.
So just going back to Third Rail for a minute, when you said you got out because it was taking you away
Yeah.
from your art. Are there business lessons that you learned through that process that you still use today?
I don't know, man. I it changes so much. Like I have friends that are in the clothing business, and it's just such a different game. I think that the lessons you have to learn, you just kind of have to learn, and they
Yeah.
adapt and they change. So,
Yeah.
I was just a guy that always kind of had a good relationship with all my accounts, distributors, stuff like that. We hung out together. It wasn't just business, because we built a lifestyle. The whole thing was a
Right.
lifestyle company,
Yeah.
and that was the hardest part of Third Rail because, the 3 rails, surf, skate, snow, and then the electric rail that runs a subway train that gives it all the juice, blah, blah, blah. So people were confused because I had board shorts
Right.
and I had, snowboards and I
Yeah.
had this, I had that. But it was a lifestyle company, so I had to have all that stuff, I thought,
Sure.
So,
Which at that time was pretty influential because
Yeah.
nobody else, like con art was all con art and Biggie Smalls and Uzis and there wasn't anyone that was kind of pulling it all together. Even when Echo came, which was one of the big companies that spawned from this movement, it was like tags and hard dude stuff. It wasn't,
Yeah.
we were able
Right.
to like throw a hip hop party and 400 hip hop dudes would come and break dance and get down, and then the next night we'd do a punk rock party and it'd be a gang of white dudes slam dancing
Yeah.
in a pit moshing. And for me, that was a perfect company to work for because I was definitely caught in the middle. So,
Right.
we're the training ground. People used to work at Third Rail and then go get a big job.
Yeah, of course.
well, where's my big
course.
job?
So what would you say today, in terms of your business? Like what are the rules?
I mean, I could happily say I have no rules.
Okay.
Like I have a couple things going on right now. I have Buckshot Prints, which just launched today, buckshotgallery.com.
Yeah.
And, we do prints, and then I have the gallery. I'm part owner in the gallery, and then I have my art career or whatever. And I just kind of keep it all art-centric.
Mhm.
Like, I don't mind doing different ventures and stuff as long as it has to do with art. I'm a producer of a movie coming out, and it's about graffiti artists. It's like
Can you tell us the title?
Vandal.
Okay.
It's about some Miami graffiti artists. It's going to be hot.
Oh.
But yeah, it's just I live, breathe, eat, sleep art. So as long as it has to do with art, I can handle it.
Yeah.
I'm consulting for a new hotel downtown. I'm curating all the art in the hotel and stuff like that. And people say, "Man, your plate's so full." It is, but I'm doing the same thing
That's
over
all.
and over. So
Yeah.
it's just it's
It all lends
manageable. It's
itself.
doable.
Yeah,
It all lends itself, which is good.
Yeah.
So if I was on your team, if I was working for you, what would I hear you say over and over?
I don't know. There's Gabor over there. I'm very anal retentive. Like in the studio, I want the thing clean all the time, and it's dirty as fuck. But I'm telling this guy every 2 seconds, like, does your mom live here? Whatever. Like, so I'm just trying to keep shit clean and just keep it organized and just I don't know. I hate people standing around. Like, I can't stand when that dude's on his fucking phone. I'm like, I don't know.
He would say, "Do what I say, not what I do."
Oh, for sure, 100%. That's 100%.
Okay. What do you think of the big sacrifices you've made to get where you are?
It's hard, man, because like I have so much fun, and I can see all my friends out there partying, and I'm like, man, I want to go party, but I do party all the time, but it's always for work, so I'm very lucky, So I don't know. Grass is always green on the other side. You look and you're like, oh man, I want to do that, and I'm like, well, fuck, I am doing that.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah,
I would say that's one thing I don't think Kelly's had to do is sacrifice very much, and I think for a career, for a career and an artist, that's a great place to be where you can kind of do what you want. I mean, if you go to his house, I mean, literally, there's probably not one thing at his house that he really wants that's not there. They got a trampoline, they got a jacuzzi, they got a pool. He can go paint his car. He can have his car lifted and worked on. He can paint a mural bigger than most people have ever had as a practice space, and he can put it on the internet live while he's painting it. It's like Kelly's always been the guy that's good at developing the perfect scenario for himself. As far as
my environment. I have to have my environment.
Like when we had Third Rail Studios, or the studio downtown, it's like people just used to want to come and vibe out because it was a great place. You'd go to another streetwear company or a clothing company, and they didn't have half the stuff that we had. So that's one thing I can say is Kelly's not had to make too many sacrifices.
Nice.
He's a lucky man.
All right, I got a couple Twitter questions.
Cool.
Fike Meany says, oh shit, I would thank him for the artwork. Ask if he's doing any work or shows in the Rhode Island, Boston area this year.
No.
Okay. Sorry, Mike. So Jim Evans Taz says, he's got two questions. What most influenced your lettering style?
Wow. Good question. My lettering style. I don't know, man. I think I've always loved letters, and I think I've always wanted my letters to look like a sign. So I think just old funky sign painters and graphics, like van graphics, stuff like that. Obviously all the old comic stuff, Rick Griffin, all that stuff, like Zap comics, like all those kind of stuff like that. I think,
Yeah, that's his next question. So you might have just answered it, but so I'd like to find out his favorite comic artist.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's a comic artist, but Robert Williams is like, he did some early comics, but he was one of my favorite artists for years. So I would have to say Robert Williams.
Nice. What about new? Who are the new cats that you're checking for?
Man, I couldn't even tell you. There's so many. Like before we got in there, I was just surfing the net or whatever on the fucking thing. Yeah. And it's like, man, people you never heard of are doing amazing shit. Like I'm just like blown away, Are
there cities or parts of the world that are like coming up right now?
Yeah, overseas. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It's like, now I see so much good stuff. I have to look at their feed and see if it's consistent. Now it's all about consistencies because anyone could hit, one,
Right.
Not anyone.
Well,
Not me.
Yeah, not anyone. It's not as easy as you think.
But and it's also just looking at different genres and different people and just different stuff, man. Like just, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we got a little bit of a speed round. We're almost out of time, but
cool.
What's your favorite piece in your house that's not yours?
Scene, Led Zeppelin piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm noticing a Zeppelin theme here. So so we'll do this. I usually ask favorite DJs, but I want to ask you if you're going to a desert island and you could bring 3 records with you, what would they be?
Led Zeppelin 2, Leonard Skinner, and Masters of Reality.
Okay. And what about what artist? So favorite artist or the one that's had the most influence on you that's before your time?
Robert Williams. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I tried to do a wall with him, and I was so stoked because he was like, "Yeah, man, what you do is amazing. I'll do that." And then I went and I was like, "We can do the wall." And he goes, "I got to tell you something." He goes, "What you do is work." He goes, "You got to get on a ladder. You got to get up and down." He goes, "I sit home. I paint my paintings. My wife brings me my lemonade." He goes, "Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pass."
Yeah.
And he was so cool the way he said it. I was like, "All right, man."
Wow. That's amazing. Well, cool, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you coming.
Right on. Thank you.
Can't wait to see the next stuff. You want to talk about what you guys are working on?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got a lot of things in the mix, but the most recent or the most upcoming thing that we have is a show with Jim Evans, Taz at Buckshot. It's in May, I think, after Coachella. We get back from Coachella. And like you said, it's just going to be Taz and Risk collaborating on as much art as possible between now and then a little bit of stuff from their independent body of work. Taz is going to focus on some of the rock stuff that we've done because he's got a wide variety, and I'm sure Kelly will come with some bangers.
Yeah.
Of his own. It should be interesting.
We have some special guests. We have Ernie Safulo, who created the Rolling Stones tongue. He's going to be there doing some stuff. So.
Yeah, which is awesome. Which is right up the alley of where we need to be.
Nice. And then let's promote all the socials and the gallery and all that stuff.
Buckshotgallery.com.
Okay.
And then I don't know the rest of it. Riskrock.com.
Okay.
That's hard.
Yeah, I'm horrible at that stuff.
That's all right. We'll find it.
Somebody asked Kelly yesterday, "What's your Snapchat?" Right? And he's like, "I don't know."
Yeah. No, that's
I mean, it's hard to keep up nowadays. You got Snapchat.
I have OG Risk and I have Risk Rocks. I don't know which one's which.
Yeah, it's tough.
So how involved are you in the brand, in managing, promoting, in the social, all that stuff?
Well, for the first time, I have a manager.
Yeah.
And it's a longtime friend of mine, Kevin Zinger and Ivory Daniels, that come from a record background.
Yeah.
And they were just like looking at me and they're like, "Hey man, you're more famous than some of our artists, and this is a joke, this and that." They go, "We could really take you." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, let's see." So we tried it for a year and it worked out great. So they're handling all the corporate stuff. And I just paint, I just do my stuff. So,
Nice.
They have a definite eye out on the brand, and I don't have to do it as much anymore. And that's good because I was saying yes to everything. And now they're like, nope. Yeah. So, they're kind of handling it for me.
Why do you think it took you so long to do that, to work with a manager?
Because, they're my managers because they're my friends, and that's just kind of how my life is, and that's how it worked out. I've had other managers, like real, polished professional dudes that sucked, and I've had friends that were great people that wasn't their world, that couldn't pull it off, and this was just a good synergy,
Nice.
Yeah, it works well together. And plus, Kevin, a big history with Kevin Zinger.
Yeah.
Third Rail, too, actually. SRH. Kevin owned SRH back in the day, which was another brand that was thriving in another area, and we used to do a lot of parties with them.
Yeah, I got arrested at a trade show, and I got kicked out of the hotel, and I didn't even know him. And he's like, "Hey, man, you need a room?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't fuck me." I'm like, "Nah, I won't fuck you." So he gave me his room. That's how we became friends, and then we went on to do parties. We got sued together.
Nice.
And then,
I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Nice.
So-
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you being here.
Right on. Thank you.
Sir,
That's right.
good one. Eddie always brings the good one.
That's right. We got a couple more coming.
Beautiful. Okay, that was my man Risk. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you did, go back and check out the interview with Taz from a few weeks back, and check out some more of our old episodes at rebelradio.net. You can leave us a comment on Twitter at rebelradionet. Find our Facebook page, and of course, leave us a nice review on iTunes.